Hello, lovely voice teacher. Welcome to another episode of the Voicepreneur podcast. Thank you, as always, for spending your time with me. I am so excited about today's episode because today we are going to be joined by the lovely Renée Yoxon. Renée is coming on to the show today as an example of what I like to call another voicepreneur in the wild. Like, truly, they are such an amazing vocal coach, voicepreneur. They're doing incredible things in their business, and it was so cool to get a chance to hear a bit about their story and what they're offering to the world. Renée is a trans and gender-affirming voice teacher who's done a phenomenal job of creating a space that helps others learn, explore, and love their voice, no matter their gender, their background, or even their skill level, because yes, they offer plenty of resources for vocal coaches as well as trans communities. Their work is extensive and inclusive. Seriously, if you go onto Renée's Instagram and click on their bio link, there's this enormous list of offers and resources to help trans and non-binary people find their voice and to help other voice teachers feel educated and supported as a vocal coach for these communities. What I especially love about Renée is the fact that they took something that was so desperately needed in the trans and non-binary community and dove deep into it without even flinching. Like, it is just amazing. Their website, their branding, and the amount of courses they offer. Wow. Oh my gosh. It's just truly inspiring to watch. I hope that this episode inspires you as much as it did me and that you connect with Renée over at everything Renée Yoxon. Don't worry, everything is going to be linked inside of the show notes, including their teacher training program for vocal coaches. So go and check it out because they have a teacher training program that is coming soon specifically for you. It is going to help you refine your teaching skills to include the non-binary and trans community. So important, so awesome, and Renée is an incredible resource to help you do just that. And without further ado, I am so excited and delighted to bring to you my conversation with Renée. Enjoy. This podcast is for professional voice teachers to answer the question, how do I grow my teaching business and even break out of that one-on-one lesson model so that I can reach and teach who I want whenever I want. I'm your host, Allie Tyler, voice teacher of over a decade and marketing and business coach for fellow voice teachers. Welcome to the Voicepreneur podcast. Renée, I am so thrilled to have you on the Voicepreneur podcast. I have literally been eyeing you for months, and I'm so glad that we were able to connect and make this happen. Thank you so much for spending your time with me and with us.
Thanks so much for having me on the podcast, Allie. I've been a fan for a while. Also, I've been creeping you on Instagram, and I was really happy to get this opportunity to talk to you today.
For sure. I know Instagram is an amazing place, right? I feel
Truly.
it's so cool too, because especially with you, you intrigued me right away. And we're going to talk about your branding and the visuals and the messaging and all this amazing stuff that you have really honed in on. But I love people where right when I look at their Instagram profile, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even need to look any further. I'm going to follow you right away. You just intrigue me so much. So yeah, I love that Instagram can do that, where it's just like, bing, bing, connection, the end. Like, it's so great.
It's
So
modern day
awesome.
business card. It really is.
It really is. It's like, that's what I call it, or like the website. Yeah, exactly. So I want to take us back, not too far. We don't have to spend too much time on this, but give us college Renée. And it sounds like you studied multiple things that are all kind of different.
Mm-hmm.
And how that has inspired you to who you are today.
Sure. I do have multiple degrees. Right out of high school, I went and got a physics degree. I don't remember why. I'm 35 now. So it's like, what was I thinking at age 17? Not really sure. I think at the time I believed it was what you did. You went and got a science degree. It's silly to say it out loud now, but that was just what I thought. And I really loved math and I really loved science. So I had a good time in physics, and I'm not, I don't regret doing it. It was very challenging. And now I have, I'm very confident as a person. If I can do that, what else can I do?
Yeah.
And then later in life, after my physics degree, I became a jazz musician. I had sort of been doing it during the the physics degree as well and in high school. And eventually I just decided I need more education to move forward in my jazz career. So I went to McGill. I think I was 26 when I started at McGill for jazz. And then I graduated like around age 30. And then I went to Ireland and got a master's degree in songwriting, which was only 1 year. It was very short, but it was a wonderful experience. And yeah, that brings me to here, to where I am today.
Wow. I didn't realize too that like, because when I think college, you know, we all think like 19 to 22. I love that you're like, nah, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go till I'm 30. I'm going to go till I'm however long. And good reminder for us that we can always, I mean, granted, it is a little bit more expensive here in America, but pursue education in general, just like it's an ongoing thing. And it's so cool that it's so different. I'm a songwriter as well. And I got my master's in that as well. And
oh, really?
yeah, I did. I went to USC and I did like a dual degree where I did half classical music and then half songwriting. And it was such an inspired action type of thing, like a very, I'm curious about this. Let's see what happens. You know, not anything. I was like, I'm not gonna be a songwriter. Like I wasn't trying to pursue that, but it was very much a curiosity that drove me there. And I love that about you too, that you have that about you. And something too, I wanted to mention when you're talking about jazz, I listened to your music and oh my goodness, your voice is like butter. I could
thank you
listen
so
to
much,
it
Ali.
all day. I'm serious. Like everybody needs to go and check out Renee's music on your website, which we will link in the show notes.
Sure.
Beautiful, jazzy. Like I can hear what you were inspired by, and it's gorgeous. I just wanted to highlight what an amazing musician you are. Truly, yeah, so cool. I love that you were like too, like, oh, I gotta study physics, and
I don't know.
That's what we do. we do science. My brain did not go there in high school.
You know what it was though? It was that I just didn't know anyone who was a professional musician, like right out of high school. And it wasn't until like about halfway through my physics degree that I started meeting people who are young and professional musicians. And I was like, oh, you can do that. Cool. So then I went and pursued that later. But being a mature student in university is the best. I really think if you can wait, like I should have waited all along. Like I'm not, like I said, I don't regret having done my physics degree, but going back to school as a mature student, the laser focus that you have, you don't have to worry about learning to do laundry on your own for the first time or all the like emotional baggage that comes with like coming of age. You're just there to learn. And you've already like made the decision in your life to study that topic. So yeah, jazz school, I was so focused on the material. It was amazing.
I love that. That's such a good point. Yeah. It's kind of like, it's like investing in yourself when you go and educate. And it's such a different mindset being like, no, I'm doing this because I want to be a well-rounded musician or artist or, you know, fill in the blank. Exactly. Okay. That's actually a perfect segue into the next thing I wanted to ask you, which is actually about your business and branding, because you know, I think one of the things that I know I struggled with and that so many voice teachers are struggling with is that we are singers and performers and we're teachers. And how do we do it all? How do we quote unquote brand ourselves or like create some cohesion around it? And also, what happens if we like something that might feel a little out of left field, maybe like songwriting, or for me, it was breath work and yoga and meditation, where I'm like, man, this is a huge part of my life. And I feel like I can infuse this in my teaching. Also, this is really helping me as a performer. Do I put a brand around this? Like, do I put a business around? It's so confusing. And I know that a lot of people will look at like all their passions and all of the things that they love and are curious about, and then go, how on earth am I supposed to put a business with this? So something that has impressed me about you is that now, of course, I'm looking at you and your brand as it's quote unquote complete. Not that there's a completion, but you know what I mean? There is a beautiful finished product that we get to see. And of course, that took time to get to. There's a whole story that comes behind it. And I know that honing in on your ideal student was probably a huge part of it.
Definitely.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, big question, obviously, but
Big
I encourage
question.
I encourage anyone like who sees my website now to go to archive.org and look at my website in the Wayback Machine just to get a sense of like how many iterations my website and my branding have gone through. And
Mm,
I have changed and so the brand has changed. If I think back to like the beginning, my ideal career was primarily being a performing artist, and then a subset of that was teaching. So the brand was like all about the performing arts. So it was creating a mood, creating a vibe. But I really struggled. I mean a lot with trying to figure out how I wanted to present myself, because this is going to sound like I'm fishing for a compliment, but I don't think I'm very cool. Like, don't fight me on that, okay? I'm not cool. But I feel like a really successful jazz singer or performing artist, like you got to be cool in some way. And I just
mm.
never felt comfortable in the cool role. So I did a lot of like photo shoots where with like the serious face and the cool outfits and the cool hair. And I looked at them and I was like not seeing myself reflected back. And that was a combination of like trying to be something I wasn't, cool, and also working with cisgender photographers who were really trying to put me into like a vision of womanhood that they saw that I just couldn't embody. So there's so many pictures of me with like glamorous makeup and dresses and earrings. And, I'm subverting it like in my own way with shaved heads and with whatever. But it wasn't until like 2020 when I worked with a trans photographer here in Montreal called Laurence Philomène, who took the pictures you see now, with the pink background. And I don't know what it was, like if I was just comfortable with myself at the time or with Laurence, but like I was able to really be myself. And when I look back at the pictures, I was like, yes, I'm seeing the like silly clowny teacher that I am. I'm kind of a bubbly person. It's not cool. It's a little bit Miss Frizzle. Like it's fun, but it's not cool. Put it that way. And now I see like a trans person also when I look at the pictures, which is really like what I wanted to embody. So, things changed over time. There was like for me, branding always flows from like a really good set of photos. I can't really go the other way around where I like do all the colors and then take the pictures. Like I like to plan the photos first and then flow the rest of the brand from that. I just think it's easier personally when you're like building a website. But then also like as I progressed in my career as a musician, and I also have chronic pain, and I sort of changed gears a little bit with what I wanted to focus on. I wanted to focus less on performing and more on teaching because it was just more sustainable for me. The brand ended up shifting along with that. So I moved away from promoting the music and the cool vibes and went more and leaned more heavily into I'm a really approachable, fun teacher. So that's how we kind of got to where we are today.
Gotcha. Wow, that is so interesting. And I love that you go photos to colors first. And I mean, that's just fascinating to me. I love hearing how people do that. Something I really do love is your photos are freaking fantastic. I love them. And I'm a huge proponent of photo shoots. I know that's weird.
No, it's not weird.
You know what I mean?
Legit. It's legit. And it's hard to find a good, like you could even do a bunch of them and not be happy. Like for my first album, I did a whole photo shoot that I paid. I'm not going to say how much. It was so embarrassing. And I didn't use any of them. At the end of the day, it was like just not right. I was very young. So, it happens. But it really can take time to find a photographer that you jive with and an outfit that works for you and the situation that works for you. It takes a long time sometimes.
Yes, it really does. And it really represents you. Like now, when I think about you, that color pink is the very first thing I think about. And I love it because it's so approachable. That's something else that's very fun about your brand, your colors. So if you haven't checked out Renée's Instagram or website and you're trying to think about this visually, it's like bright, bubbly pink and purple. Do you have green in there too? Or am I making that up?
Not in the photos, but teal is like one of the brand colors.
Yeah. And it's just so fun and funky, but also extremely safe. And I love that about you because it takes time to, and the photos are part of that too, right? It's like there's a safetiness in seeing someone who is, I'm using your words, quote unquote, not cool. who is like owning it, who's in the photos, who looks like a freaking badass. That is so awesome. Like, we need more of that. So yeah, I agree. Like, I think the visual component is there. I am very fascinated that because I didn't know that you had this whole like branding around your performing and your jazz and all of that, and being this singer, which totally makes sense, of course. So if you don't mind sharing, and if whatever feels comfortable for you, obviously, I would love to hear a little bit about how you solidified your current ideal student. And if there is like a story or a particular experience that maybe you had that inspired you to get really specific with your niche.
Yeah, absolutely. So for like 12 years, I was a singing teacher. Like, I did singing and songwriting, and I was teaching more or less whoever came to my door. And as I progressed in my life and solidified my identity as transgender and as disabled, I found that I had a better time teaching people who shared my identity. Not everybody did, but it's just like there was unspoken things that just made me more comfortable as a teacher. So when I was in my songwriting degree, we had like a business course that encouraged us to make a 3-strand plan. They recognized that performing artists usually had multiple facets to their career, as you mentioned. So they were like, okay, you're going to make a little business plan for the 3 strands of your business. And so for me at the time, it was performing and teaching and songwriting. And as I was making that plan, I was like, I think I want to focus on teaching trans people and or disabled people. There's a wide overlap in that community, so it's not really hard to find people who identify as both. But traditionally, those groups don't have a lot of disposable income for voice lessons. So I made a scholarship program called the Right to Sing Award, and I raised a little money from my community, and I gave away, I think, like 10 lessons in the first year. And because I did that, I think I bought an Instagram ad to like solicit applications for that award and also donations. And a group in Montreal called Project 10, they're like a trans youth organization. They found me and asked me to come and teach a workshop on trans voice alteration, speaking voice alteration, which was something I had never done. But I said yes because I was like, this seems like right up my alley, actually. Like, it's voice pedagogy, it's trans, it's really super interesting. So once I did that, I saw pretty much immediately the gap in service provision that existed in Montreal, where I live, specifically in French. There wasn't really anybody teaching workshops like this in French, and I do speak French. So I was doing it in both English and French. And then they just kept sending me students. And as I acquired more and more students, I realized, there are lots of people who can teach singing really, really well. And I'm one of them, but I can do other things for my community. And so that was how I made the decision to pivot entirely to trans voice alteration lessons.
Wow. I love that. I mean, it's so cool when it's community driven. I'm quite surprised to hear you say all this. It's definitely not where I thought you were going to go. And it's so, no, but it's like, it's one thing to be like, there's a problem that needs to be solved, right? This is where our business mind goes. I am solving a problem. This is what my business does, right? And then it's another to be like, oh, I can actually rein in my community to help, which is amazing. You built this scholarship, so creative, such a doable thing.
Yeah, I'm a doer.
Yeah. And it's something that it's like, I think people would hear that and be like, oh my God, that sounds so intimidating. It's like, no, like, you can do it. And
I mean, if you can crowdsource like whatever, $5,000 to make an album, you can crowdsource $1,000 to teach a few lessons for free. Like, it's
exactly. Money is not hard to find, people. Yeah. People got the money, right? Yeah. So, and I love it's so creative, but it's so service-based, and it's very much coming from this realm or this angle of accessibility. And I love that. It's so important. And something I actually really haven't thought deeply about until this moment right now is like, oh yeah, it is a problem that disabled and trans voices across the board don't have the accessible education to be able to sing freely and express themselves. That's so not fair. Like, we've all known that it's not fair in general in terms of our teaching education, which I know that you know so much about. And I feel like we got to get you on the podcast for another episode on that, the vocal pedagogy of all of this. But in general, like, yeah, creating a scholarship and then providing funds for them and then letting that experience inspire your brand shift. That's so cool. I talk a lot about with voice teachers, the power of sort of like, how do I say this? You kind of like gotta like let yourself relax and let things happen. It's
Totally.
like, you know what I mean? Like that, you got the right opportunity that got you in front of the right people. And were you fully prepared with your masterclass and your PowerPoints?
No.
No.
I'll also say that I wasn't like a brand genius or anything. Like along the line, as I was like changing and pivoting and learning, I was reading books on branding and talking to other artists who are working on the same issues. Like, and asking myself, am I a spring or a winter? Like, questions like that. Like I did all the online quizzes and read a bunch of books and had conversations about branding and just, I do have trouble with what you just said, which is like, just relax and let it happen. I'm not very good at that.
No, I
But
know.
I definitely like did a lot of things. And then eventually the stars aligned with that photo shoot. But I feel like I was working my way towards that result for a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's like you do your part and then there will be another part that will coexist and collaborate and co-create with you.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what I meant and exactly right. And that's so cool that that was the thing that opened your eyes. And of course, reading about branding, absorbing, consuming, your mind is already thinking about it. We're already on that train of thought. And then you're like, oh, I'm getting all these students and they feel really great to teach. Like we vibe, we get each other. This is kind of what I want to do more of. Amazing. You have done so much since then. I mean, I don't know when that was, but it don't matter because you've done so much since then. Actually, I'm curious, when did that happen? Like, when did you start doing, like, focusing on all of that? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so the first workshop I gave on trans voice alteration was 2018, I believe.
Okay.
So it was probably, or maybe I can't remember now. I think it was around 2018. And I think I did the photo shoot in 2020. Yeah, it was in the pandemic. So it was the end. It might have even been 2021. It wasn't that long ago, is what I'm trying to say. Like this has all happened like very recently.
Very fast. Oh my goodness. That's fascinating, Renee. I'm always really like curious about, hustlers like you. So you go onto Renee's website and you see that they are super multifaceted all around. They have, their background, obviously we talked about with jazz. They've got a ton of their albums. They have courses. There are so many things on your website that you offer, and it's all extremely creative and so authentic to you. And I'm very curious what and how on earth you manage that as a business owner, because this is another question that I get a lot from voice teachers is like, yeah, that sounds really cool to be posting all the time on Instagram and doing the TikTok and the YouTubes but how do I do that and teach at the same time? So do you have any hacks or secrets, or like, are you a ritual and routine person? Give us the inside scoop. We want to know how are you doing that?
So yes, I am a ritual and routine person, and I have hacks. And this is because of chronic pain, essentially. Like I've really learned how to batch make things. I've learned how to be really efficient with my work. I only really work like 4 days a week and only like 6 hours a day. And I don't teach that much anymore. So I'll tell you how it sort of went down. Basically, in May of 2021, I made a TikTok, my first TikTok, and it went viral. And I had been teaching like quite a lot up till that point. My books were like totally booked out and I couldn't take on any more students. And that was when I made the decision to actually stop teaching completely and take like 4 months off to make my first e-course. So this was like a blessing, right? Like not everybody can do what I did. I just had this weird confluence of experiences where I knew there was a market demand for this product. So I could safely take a lot of time off knowing that I would make the money back that I was going to lose by not teaching. So I took some time off. I made the e-course. I launched it. Major success. Huge, best thing I've ever done in my life. So that was pretty cool. And so then I took that year, so like from May 2021 to May 2022, I didn't teach any private lessons. I made the course and then I decided to make another course and another course. And I focused on, driving the email list and making social media content, TikToks and things like that. And then in May of 2022, I opened up my books again for private students, but at a different price point, because now the price point had to like make sense with the price of the e-courses, right? It had to be more expensive to study with me privately. And so now I only teach maybe 3 lessons a week. That's like the max I want to be teaching, because I'm also making more courses and I'm developing new free resources for my community. I just finished making an ebook on cognitive load games for trans voice work. I literally finished that today.
Wow.
But I wouldn't be able to do that if I was teaching 20 hours a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's very interesting that you took off that time knowing, because you said something key there. You knew that you were going to make that money back that you were losing from teaching. You had a confidence that this course was going to work, and it did. Was that something that you just knew? Like, how did you, because a lot of people in that moment, that gap is where they freak the F out, right? They're like,
yeah, understandably. Yeah. I mean, I had never been in a position where I had that kind of confidence before, but because of this viral TikTok, I like took my whole website down and replaced it with a landing page that was like, courses coming, give me your email. Like, I didn't even make a lead generator. I didn't even exchange the email for anything. And hundreds of people signed up because it was a thing people wanted. Like, these resources existed in the community before me. I'm not trying to pretend that like I invented trans voice alteration, but I think there was only a few people teaching them, and everybody resonates with a different learning style and teaching style. And a lot of people saw in me what they hadn't seen in the community yet. So that was why I had that kind of confidence, because the mailing list just like exploded after that viral TikTok.
Wow. Okay. That is super cool. That's very interesting. And from like just a general business perspective. And like the thing about being a savvy business owner, like us, like the, voicepreneurs, I hope the goal is that we want to be flexible. We want to look at data like that and be like, interesting. That went viral. There's a need here. People are really, really showing interest. I need to do something about this. And that I need to do something about this. That is the difference between good and great businesses, right? It's like what helps you be successful is being like, there's a need. I need to solve it. Pause the world. I'm going to focus on this. And yes, obviously we both say this with a lot of privilege in that and I did the exact same thing, Renee, where I was actually, I relate to chronic pain as well. I have chronic back conditions and I was out for about 4 months. I couldn't move for about 4 months. And so I was like, all right, I guess I'll build a course. So that's what I did when I was laying on the couch, and I built out my whole course, and I'm like videoing and like barely being able to sit up and doing that whole thing. But needless to say, it does take privilege, of course, to have that spaciousness, right? And it takes courage to be like, yes, I'm going to lose money. And that's okay, because I know that this is something that people need. And then you, of course, had your experience a couple years prior to that where you're like, yeah, this is my jam. So fascinating. I love that all happened from a TikTok video. Man,
TikTok has changed my life, truly. I mean, TikTok is, if anyone is like worried about not being cool enough for TikTok, let me tell you, you don't have to be cool to be on TikTok.
I feel like uncool people, I feel like that's like what TikTok's all about. It's like where you go to thrive if you're like quote unquote not cool. I love that.
Yeah, actually though. Yeah. I mean, I got on there originally because I knew that young trans people were on TikTok. I just knew that. And like I said, I'm 35 and I was like, oh, do I really want to be a millennial on TikTok? Well, if I want to teach this group, like, yeah, I have to be. So I just made an offhanded TikTok. I didn't even plan it. I just sort of said an idea that I had from my experience teaching trans voice. And a lot of people hadn't seen that on TikTok before. And TikTok, I think, prioritizes new creators. So if you're getting on there, it's more likely to push your content to virality. Then like now it's a little bit harder for me to have a viral TikTok just because of by virtue of the fact that I've been on there for like a couple of years. And that's a pretty common experience, I think, for TikTok creators.
Interesting. Do you primarily use TikTok now as like a lead generating resource, or do you use Instagram? Like, where's your place that you hang out?
Yeah. So I make what I call like content drivers. So I just make like a video and I put it on TikTok, and then I put it on Instagram, and I also put it on my blog. Like I'm recycling content. I'm not making different content for every for every social media resource. No.
Gotcha.
No. But TikTok is like the first place I think of when I'm making content. Like I'm making it as a TikTok first. And
Got it.
We're just lucky that we have Reels. So
I know.
they get the TikToks,
Right? Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's exactly what my question was. Is like, what is your favorite?
Well, that's a different question, right?
Okay. How is that a different question?
Well,
Interesting.
I have a love-hate relationship with all social media. Obviously I love TikTok because of what it's done for my business and how it connects me to my audience. I love that, but it is so addictive. And I have mad respect for anybody who just wants to stay the fuck away from TikTok because it is a literal slot machine. Like I have to delete it off my phone like at least once a month because it's not moving me forward in my life. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, Renee. I struggle with this with Instagram so hard. I finally, after God knows how long I've had an iPhone, realized last month that you can set limits for yourself on certain apps. And I was like, where has this been all my life? It's helped me a little bit, but I totally feel that. This is actually a perfect segue into something I've been dying to ask you. And this is about boundaries. You have really done a very good job of setting up boundaries across your social media and your email platforms. And what I mean by this specifically, and this is the only boundary that I've experienced with you personally, is your away message, right? You've got like an email message that comes up for anybody who emails you that it's very, very sweet. It's like, we're a tiny team, we do our best. And I love that. And I'm like, man, I need to do that too, because I don't want to feel stressed with email, right? You do the same exact thing on your DMs and Instagram. I know that those are just a couple of real examples, but it really alludes the fact that you're like, yo, I got my thing over here and you got your thing over there. And like, I'll come when I'm ready.
Let's talk boundaries. I love boundaries. I mean, so boundaries to me are just setting expectations with the people that you are communicating with, right? So I can't possibly be available everywhere. Like that is not scalable. And I'm sure you've talked in other podcasts about scalability, but I want to create a business that scales. And by setting boundaries, that lays the groundwork for that. Because if I make myself, if I set the expectation with my community now that I can be reached at any time via email or anytime via DMs, how am I ever going to succeed if I got double the audience? Impossible. It's just not possible, right? And now that I'm 35, I say it a lot because I love being 35 and I think everybody should embrace the age that they are at. Now that I'm 35, like I just want a chill life. Like I think this is a very normal thing when you get older. Like I'm actually not like a rise and grind type, although I think I give off rise and grind energy and I do like to work, but I want to work when I say I'm going to work and have hobbies and rest and read books and have like a very balanced life and see my friends and be like a pleasant person to be around. And that's never going to happen if I'm constantly in reaction mode,
Yes.
And also with chronic pain, I can't possibly manage it if I am pushing myself past my limits. So the boundaries are very intentional. It's like, I can only answer specific questions that come to me in a specific way. And then I will answer those questions when my body is ready. The rest of the time I'm exercising so that I'm not in pain all the time, or I'm seeing my friends so that I'm happy and my head is in a good place to like take on challenging questions. And this is actually the other reason I really need boundaries in my work is that, the trans community is chronically undersupported just in general. People don't have family necessarily. They might not have close friends. And many times when I pivoted to like teaching trans people specifically, I would leave a lesson being like, holy shit, I just heard something that this person just needed to tell somebody and I may not have been ready for it. And that's okay. Like, it's okay. As singing lessons, they're sometimes really emotional. With trans people, it's like doubly so. So I just realized early on that I was going to have to make sure that I was arriving to my private lessons and to any moment of interaction with my community ready for that, and intentionally ready. I can't just show up feeling like garbage and not able to be a foil for my community. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. I love that you mentioned that last part. We are sharing a very intense energetic exchange with somebody for an extended period of time for many times during the month. It's a lot. Yes. It is a lot. And I love that something that's so cool, I think, about having a social media platform that you are using to scale your business is we always have a choice as a business owner how we interact with that platform. We can interact with it as I'm totally jiving right now and making this up on the spot, but let's say we're interacting with it. I'm interacting with it as personal Allie, like Allie who's upstairs drinking her coffee in her PJs, not business Allie, right? And we can get super numbed out, man. It's easy to get numbed out on those platforms, as we were talking about, right? What did you say? It was a slot machine.
It's just, it literally, it functions in exactly the same way, right?
You're
You play
right.
the slot machine, you might win. With TikTok, you scroll and you might get a good video. And studies have shown that like when there's uncertainty in success of an action, it's actually way more addictive.
Whoa. Okay. This is giving me a light bulb moment because I do that where I will scroll and then I'm looking for something entertaining or good or whatever. And then the moment I find it, I get off the platform. I'm like, I'm good. Wow. I've never thought about that. You are so right. It is definitely a slot machine.
Well, this was a study they did in rats. It was like, press a button, you get a hit of whatever dopamine. But if the button only sometimes gave them the hit of dopamine, then they really couldn't stop pressing the button. And that's TikTok in a nutshell. I mean, it's designed around basically this study.
Wow. Yeah. It's so, and it helps to have that awareness. I mean, obviously when someone like you who takes, like an article like that and is like, that's bad for my brain. I should probably not do that. That's the other choice, right? That we make as a business owner. It's like, we can choose to be that personal, like numbing out, let's escape. And then we can choose to, for me, it's like, I get in my office and I'm in my office. It's like, phone is not near me unless I need it for something. And I log in. I don't know if you can do this on TikTok, but I log in on Instagram on my desktop. And that really helps me feel like it's like a business. It's like, it's so tricky. It's so tricky to have a really good relationship with these things when it is something that you depend on for your business.
Yeah, it's definitely become easier now that I've decided that I don't share my personal life on these apps. Like Instagram, I was 20. When did Instagram come out? I was young when Instagram first came out, and I was sharing my food and whatever, my life, like everybody else was, with all the filters and things. And now nobody needs to know where I'm at right now. Nobody needs to know that, because that's not, especially now, because that's not why people are on my Instagram. They're there for information, for resources. They don't actually care what I'm eating for breakfast. So it's become like a non-issue. I don't need to be there to share my life anymore. And I think that's given me a much healthier relationship to them, because if I really desire to share my life, it's like, why do I want attention? Well, I can probably ask a friend or a family member or loved one for attention. Like, if I want validation, I can get it in a healthier way than likes on my breakfast photo. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Gosh, do I ever. It's so
self-awareness.
So good. It's so important. It's self-awareness. Amen. And it is a decision every day.
Yeah.
It's a decision every day. So thank you for that. I think that really helps us distinguish like how to really treat it like a business versus getting sucked into it, the cycling of it. Man, I could talk to you all day, Renee, and I really would love to bring you back for a future episode, because I know you have a lot to share on pedagogy, and this is, a podcast for voice teachers, and I think that they could gain so much valuable information from all the knowledge that you have. So that will happen. I feel it will happen.
Sometime. Sure.
I thought I had seen, a program or something along the lines that you were helping other voice teachers with.
If there are teachers, like voice teachers, who are interested in pivoting to trans voice alteration work, and I do think voice teachers are like the perfect people to do this, I do a teacher training program as well. It runs like once or twice a year. I don't think I'll run it again till the fall of 2023, but that's something that I do because I know it's very challenging for teachers to like get resources on how to teach this information. So that's something that I started a couple of years ago.
Oh, fantastic. We will definitely be sure to link that inside of the show notes, because that is such another great resource that, I don't know, you're just a magician content creator. I'm like, how do you do all the things? But it's amazing. I
just wake up every day and I keep making things. I don't know.
You have found your zone of genius. It's great. We love
Thank
it.
you.
Awesome, Renee. Well, thank you again for being here. And can you please let everybody know where we can find you on the internet?
Yes, I am at Renée Yoxon on all the things. That's ReneeYoxon or ReneeYoxon.com. Wonderful.
Thank you, Renee. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will catch you in the next one.
Thanks, Allie.
Ooh, wasn't that a great conversation? I loved that conversation with Renee, and I am so inspired by all of the work that they are doing in this world. As I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, Renee has a wonderful voice teacher training program that I highly recommend getting your hands on. It's called Learn to Teach Trans Voice Alteration in 5 weeks. And it's a fantastic resource if you want to learn how to be a helpful guide for your students that may be going through or will in the future a voice alteration from transitioning. I'm so grateful for people like Renee who provide such in-depth, needed, helpful content and resources for those of us, myself included, who are looking for it. Just by looking at the sales page, I am fascinated. I am eager to learn more about this work, and you can best believe that if and when I start kicking up my voice teaching again, this will be one of the very first resources I am getting my hands on. So go and check it out. The link is inside of the show notes, and if you enjoyed this conversation, it would mean so much to me and Renee if you shared it. Share it with a voice teacher friend or any friend. It doesn't really matter, whoever you want. That would mean so much to us. And be sure to subscribe to the Voicepreneur podcast, like the video if you are watching this on the YouTube channel, and rate and review it over on Apple Podcast if you are a podcast listener. We super appreciate your support. And if you'd like more support with your teaching business, you know where to find us. And if you don't, go and check out the resources inside of the show notes or the description below this episode. We've got programs and courses and communities and coaching and all of the things you could ever need to help your teaching business grow. So go and check it out because you are not alone in your teaching business. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope that you have an awesome rest of your week, and I will catch you in the next episode.